And joining me now to discuss this is Gordon Chang, the author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America and the Coming Collapse of China. Thanks for your time, Gordon. What's the big picture here? Has the U.S. not woken up or done enough yet to keep its intellectual property safe from the Chinese regime?
Certainly, Kevin. And the big picture here is that this guy who stole critical American secrets, what does he get? He gets 46 months in prison. You know, what we should be doing is treating him as an enemy combatant and sending him to Guantanamo, for an indefinite stay. This is serious because we're giving a lot of slap on the wrist sentences to Chinese. So, for instance, in June, we charged 3 Chinese nationals with trying to bring in a fungus. Well, what did the lead defendant get? Well, she got time served, 5 months, and then she was deported back to China for an attack on the American food supply. I mean, of course the Chinese are stealing our stuff because we don't impose sentences on them that merit what they have done.
Gordon, that's exactly right. And when we think about this, I mean, these aren't just, dumb bombs or machine guns. I mean, this is, in his personal drive, sophisticated sensors based in space that detect nuclear missile launches, and then also tech for U.S. fighter jets to jam these heat-seeking missiles and so on. Now, specifically about Chen Guangdong, if he had a long history of taking money to steal tech for the PLA, why was he not dealt with at that time? Are investigative methods too slow to prevent this?
I think that they are. And also got to remember that we are squeamish about investigating Chinese. But we've got to remember that the Communist Party actually targets not only Chinese nationals working in our country, but also Chinese Americans with, U.S. citizens, and threatens them with all sorts of things if they don't steal information for China or if they don't engage in other activities which constitute crimes. We've got to understand that China has weaponized its nationals and act accordingly. And if we don't, we're going to continue to lose all sorts of valuable secrets to communist China when we should be protecting ourselves.
And Gordon, on that note, I mean, China, the communist regime, they have a meteoric rise in their nuclear weapons stockpile. They're being aggressive to their neighbors that we saw with Japan and the Philippines and so on. What does the CCP do with the technology it steals? I mean, we know that they're persecuting their own people. They're using it for surveillance. I mean, why should Americans be paying attention to this specifically?
Well, China is using the technology that it has stolen or purchased from American companies and putting it in weapons that are targeting Americans. You talk about the surveillance state. We had Cisco and Microsoft and a number of American universities actively cooperate in China's program to surveil, monitor, and coerce Uyghurs and other Turkic minorities. I mean, that's horrendous. But also we have our technology going into weapons that are aimed at us. So that's why we should care.
Yes, definitely. Now let's turn to Japan. The CCP doesn't like that the Japanese Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, said that Chinese military action against Taiwan would threaten Tokyo. And now the Chinese regime is threatening Japan with patrols around Japanese islands, and it's targeting Japan's tourism industry. Is this straight out of the playbook of Beijing?
Yes, and they've done this before. And before, you've had Japanese prime ministers cave into China. Takaichi is a lot tougher than almost all of her predecessors. So we expect a better response. But, China has been pressing Japan, and Japan has been trying to appease the Chinese, and it hasn't worked. And Takaichi is a lot sterner than her previous prime ministers.
Well, and what does the international community need to do to shield itself from a similar aggression? If leaders, they just speak the truth, and then all of a sudden the Chinese regime doesn't like that, and then they turn around and then they just go and whether it's shut down their ability to operate, for example, even in their political or their private sphere. Like, for example, Shen Yun in South Korea, as soon as they hear something they don't like, they say, no, shut that down. We want to silence all political dissidents. I mean, this is not just an isolated incident.
No, and China's been using its leverage, economic leverage, to obtain geopolitical ends for a very long time. And the question, what should we do? Well, we should be trading with our friends and partners, not the communist regime. If we do that, we can bolster, for instance, Taiwanese Lithuanians, Australians, and Japanese producers. And that's exactly what we need to do so that they're not dependent on China. We need to create trading blocs that isolate Beijing.
Yes, and what does that look like in practice? Because we see China's Belt and Road Initiative just expanding out through Central Asia, even over to Europe. I mean, they're clearly putting a lock on critical minerals. It's like all roads tend to go through China. It's called the Central Kingdom in Chinese. What's their grandmaster plan, and how do you disrupt that, given that it's a communist regime that doesn't respect the rule of law?
Well, the grandmaster plan is to rule. Not dominate, not control, not exert hegemony over, but to directly rule the world. This is this whole notion of tianxia, where China not only has the right to rule the world, it has the obligation to do so. This comes out of the imperial era period. And since 2017, Chinese officials have been talking about the moon and Mars as sovereign Chinese territory. So we have to understand that our separate existence, our country, our sovereignty is inconsistent with China's notions of the way the world should operate. And we obviously, we try to ignore what the Chinese say. And this is something that is just sort of inherent in our character. We ignored Osama bin Laden, even after he killed 6 Americans by bombing the North Tower of the World Trade Center in February 1993. We just absolutely believe that we have a God-given right to ignore what our enemies say. And China is far more powerful than al-Qaeda, which means that we could lose our country.
Well, Gordon, I mean, the CCP, they're playing the soft power game. They're trying to insert the CCP propagandas and things like Confucius Institutes. And even in Japan, they're telling all these Chinese students, oh, no, you need to be in a heightened state of alertness. You know, don't go to Japan, cutting them off, the Japanese, that is. So how can the United States redirect that and help Americans, first of all, understand the dangers, and then not to mention the Chinese people themselves who are waking up? I mean, over 420 million Chinese worldwide have quit the CCP and its related organizations because they've woken up.
Well, what the United States needs to do is the President of the United States needs to get behind the Resolute desk in front of a TV camera and talk to the Americans about what China is doing and its plans. Xi Jinping is preparing to go to war, and we Americans are oblivious. We think we're at peace. But, the fact that we only give a 46-month sentence to somebody who stole all this valuable technology shows that we don't think that this is a wartime situation. That guy should have been sent not through the federal criminal justice system. He should have been treated as an enemy combatant and sent to Guantanamo. The fact that we don't do this is on us. We know what's going on, Kevin, and yet we refuse to understand the consequences and the importance of what is occurring.
We know that the CCP has a doctrine of unrestricted warfare, achieve its goals over who it deems adversaries with any means necessary. Gordon Chang, thank you for coming on and giving us clarity.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I really appreciate it.